Hi, and welcome to this webinar on a guide to the best practice in early childhood intervention online modules. I'm Trish McIvor, the project lead for the online training project, which I'm very pleased to say is up and running and ready for use. This webinar will introduce you to the suite of modules and offers a variety of ways that you can use them in your professional development, whether you're a sole practitioner or you work as part of a larger team. I'd like to add, though, that although the primary training audience are ECI practitioners, allied health professionals, and early childhood professionals, these modules will be a great resource for ECI and allied health students, early childhood partners, and families who want to learn more about best practice in ECI. Firstly, I'd like to highlight that the project grew out of the identified need of the ECI sector and stakeholders to retain and build a highly qualified workforce in early childhood intervention as guided by the national guidelines. The national guidelines guide the way that early childhood intervention should be delivered as supported by evidence-based research and practice. But there is one thing to have a framework and another to put it into practice. So training was one way of upskilling the ECI workforce. In more recent times, we consulted with the sector and found that there were some gaps in training on the best practice principles, especially for practitioners in rural and remote areas who found it difficult to attend the more traditional forms of training. It was also noted that with the growth of early childhood support since the rollout of the NDIS, new graduates or professionals entering into the ECI field may not have had as many opportunities to be mentored by practitioners who have more experience working in a best practice approach. Also, it was noted that with increasing external pressures, time constraints and travel, practitioners can find it quite difficult to attend more formal ways of training. And in more recent times, we have experienced the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, and this has also highlighted the need to ensure that online learning opportunities are meaningful, flexible and timely. So that's why we started to look at a form of online training that was not only comprehensive but practical and something that could be actually applied to everyday work situations in the field in early childhood intervention. So the objectives of the online training are to support the ECI sector with meeting the standards of evidence-based best practice, to promote quality service provision, to ensure positive outcomes for children receiving ECI supports under the NDIS, provide opportunities for upskilling and expanding knowledge relating to core skills and competencies of the ECI profession, and to provide an opportunity for the ECI workforce to expand and enhance their effectiveness in meeting the changing needs of the NDIS market. So let's take a look at the modules. There are 6 introductory and 6 implementation modules. The introductory modules cover all of the 4 quality areas of best practice, with the addition of the first module that provides an overview of the 8 best practice principles of the national guidelines, and the second module on the key worker. For anyone who is new to the field or wants to gain more understanding of not only what the 8 principles are, but why they are seen as best practice, Module 1 is a good starting point. It's recommended that this module be completed before moving on to the other introductory modules, as it does provide a solid basis of how and why the principles were developed and its connections to the Early Years Learning Framework and the Victorian Early Years Learning and Development Framework. The second module will introduce you to the role of a key worker in early childhood intervention. For the purpose of the module, the term key worker is used, but this may refer to anyone who is the main point of contact for a family in ECI. The next 4 modules will introduce you to the 4 quality areas of the national guidelines, best practice in ECI. Module 3 will introduce you to quality area 1, family, and the key principles of family-centred and strength-based practice and culturally responsive practice. Module 4 will introduce you to quality area 2, inclusion, and the key principles of inclusive and participatory practice and engaging the child in natural environments. Module 5 will introduce you to quality area 3, teamwork, and the key principles of collaborative teamwork and capacity building practices. And Module 6 will introduce you to quality area 4, universal principles, and the key principles of evidence-based, standards, accountability and practice, and outcome-based approach. These modules will not only provide information about what the principles are, but why they are important in providing best outcomes for children and their families. This suite would be a good starting point for anyone new to ECI, whether a student, new graduate, a professional moving into the sector, or a family who want to know more about best practice. So I'll probably allow around 30 minutes or less to complete an introductory module. This will allow you plenty of time to complete tasks and go over any resources and links. The implementation suite consists of 6 modules that move to the how of implementing these principles into practice. Some of the content you will find in Module 7 includes how to work in partnership with families using the 3 elements of family-centred practice, how to use strengths-based approach as the building blocks for intervention, how to build authentic engagement with families, and how to empower families to be decision makers. Module 8 looks at culturally responsive practice with the 3 elements of family-centred practice and ways of working with families, and looks at key skills for implementing culturally responsive practice. Module 9 looks at the role of the practitioner and early childhood professional when supporting inclusion and participation of all children. It includes how to embed strategies inclusively in a play-based approach, and how to plan and create learning opportunities that are engaging, purposeful, and recognising the individual needs, strengths, and interests of all children. Module 10 looks at identifying and utilising natural learning opportunities that occur in a child's everyday life, and how to provide opportunities for children to practice developmentally appropriate and functional skills in real-life settings. It also looks at how to work with families to set goals and implement strategies in their everyday routines and activities. Module 11 looks at how to identify and form a team around the child and the role of the practitioner in collaborative teams. It looks at ways of working collaboratively with other professionals, services and families that include ways of goal setting and sharing information with all stakeholders. Module 12 looks at the role of the practitioner and the skills and qualities required in capacity building practice. It looks at how to implement adult learning principles and coaching to build the skills and capacities of others. All modules embed universal principles and evidence-based practice. The implementation suite is designed for practitioners who wish to gain more practical ways of putting the principles into practice. Allow around 45 minutes to fully complete this module. That will give you enough time to complete any tasks or go over any resources and links. When it came to developing the modules, there were a number of areas to consider. These included content that was relevant and applicable to current work practices in Australia. And the project was fortunate to have a group of experts that represented a variety of stakeholders on the reference group, as well as opportunities to consult with the sector. So you will find the representatives of the reference group in the acknowledgement section at the end of each module. Another important factor when considering the content and format of the modules was the application of adult learning principles to the online learning space. As adults, we tend to want to learn things that meet our needs, are relevant, and help us to achieve our goals. Learning opportunities, therefore, need to be important to us and internally driven. For example, is it likely to increase job satisfaction? Is it likely to build our confidence? Is it likely to build our personal growth and development? Research has shown that motivation can be increased by learning experiences that embrace adult learning principles, and this was brought to the forefront when designing the modules. We know from research that adult learners tend to resist learning when they feel others are imposing information, ideas, or actions on them. To gain a sense of control and be more self-directed, the modules can be accessed at any point, at any time or venue with a resume function that will enable a learner to exit a module at any point and be able to resume where they left off when they log back in. Learners can also move around the suite freely by choosing the modules they are interested in and can move in whatever order they wish. There are no prerequisite units or a particular order that learners are locked into. However, there are recommendations made at the start of each module on which modules to best move to, but learners are not locked into following this and have the freedom to navigate through the course in the order of preference and in a time that best meets their needs and interests. For anyone new to the ECI sector, it is recommended that the introductory modules are completed before moving on to the implementation suite. Some services may like to use the introductory suite as part of an induction program, or at least use Module 1 to introduce new recruits to best practice in ECI. We know that adult learners come with a reservoir of already accumulated knowledge and experience and connect past experiences with current knowledge and activities. Therefore, the modules, particularly in the implementation suite, use lots of scenarios, case studies, challenges, and reflective questions that will promote deeper thinking and application of knowledge. When going through the modules, you will find that after you have entered your response to scenario or case study questions or entered your reflections, there will be a slide that touches on some points that you may or may not have considered. This provides some instant feedback and further prompts for reflection that supports further learning. Another way of utilising the scenarios and case studies, that there's challenges and opportunities, as well as reflective questions, could be used as part of a team meeting or a professional development session when ideas can be shared and other possibilities be explored by the team or a network group that you may be involved in. This may be facilitated by a team leader or nominated team member, where you may be partnered or prefer to be partnered up with another colleague when taking a module, and this could provide additional discussion and sharing of ideas. You also know that adult learners are usually time poor and want to know that what they're learning has relevance to their own roles and responsibilities. The objectives for each module are clearly outlined at the start of each unit. When developing the modules, we were mindful of the information presented and its relevancy to the current landscape of ECI in Australia. Each module has a resource section that includes additional tools, web links and resources that a learner can follow up if desired, as well as a list of further readings in the reference section so that learners can continue to explore topics of interest at their own discretion. We also know that adult learners are practical and like to apply newly acquired knowledge in practical ways where they can be active participants in the learning experience. E-learning has the advantage of incorporating a variety of interactive ways to help facilitate learning, such as quizzes, podcasts, videos, activities and challenges. These are incorporated in all of the modules. ECI VIC has also produced a number of short video clips specifically for the modules where learners can hear from other practitioners about their experience that relate to their everyday practice, as well as listen to the voice of families and their experiences in ECI. In the resource section of the modules, you will find some practical tools that can be used by practitioners when working with children and families, as well as tools to work collaboratively with other service providers. Some come in the form of fact sheets, postcards and templates, so feel free to have a look at these. Finally, after completing a module, you're able to download a certificate of completion and have the opportunity to provide any feedback. As we would like to ensure that the training suites are relevant, current and useful, your feedback would be much appreciated. So please feel free to have a look through the training suite. They can be found on the ECI VIC website under the Learning and Development tab. Thank you for listening to this webinar. I hope you enjoy the modules and find them to be useful in your professional development.